Hello, I'm Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer of the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Welcome to the second event in our spring seminar series, today created by the PDMI's Workshop Council, CTV in Canada, What's the Reality? We welcome all of you to today's event, PDMI members and non-members alike. If you're not a PDMI member but are attending today, we'd love to have you consider joining the association. There's no better way to support the mission of the PDMI than joining and sharing your voice in the direction of the industry. In the handouts tab of your control panel, you'll find our PDMI membership brochure. I urge you to download it, flip through it, and contact any of our team members should you desire more information. One more housekeeping note, the group will be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of today's session, but you do not have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send your question in. We'll be collecting them and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the final moments of the webinar. You know, the growth of connected TV, outlets, viewership, and of course ad spend has been one of the biggest US performance marketing stories of the past 2 years. But different countries evolve at different paces. In Canada, long considered a tremendous testing ground among D2C marketers, given its proximity to and demographic similarities with the United States, how quickly is the CTV advertising marketplace growing? What are the opportunities and challenges when considering CTV in Canada? And what types of marketers are finding success? Today, we welcome this quartet of experts to share inside information on how CTV media is evolving in Canada. Let's meet the group. We have Ben Hemming, Executive Vice President and Partner at Bulletin, Garrett MacDonald, Chief Commercial Officer at AudienceX, Rachel Waters, Engagement Director at Finecast, and our moderator, Geoff Crain, Senior Director of Sales and Marketing at Kingstar Media. Geoff, thank you all and for joining us. Let's get started. Take it away.
Thanks for the intro, Tom, and thanks everybody for joining. I think we wanted to start by welcoming everybody and thanks for taking the time out of your day. We hope it's beneficial. We look forward to answering your questions at the end. To start, I know Tom already did some brief intros, but we want to give a little bit more introduction so you get familiar with us. I'll start with myself. I'm Geoff Crain. I'm the Senior Director of Sales and Marketing at Kingstar Media. We're a performance-focused ad agency located here in Toronto, Canada. I focus on all sales and marketing efforts and also run the digital department, so I have some good confidence and expertise in the connected TV game. I'd like to now introduce Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I work at Finecast, which is a connected TV company. I have worked in an agency background role for about 15 years and now super excited to join the team at Finecast to evolve and develop what connected TV looks like here in Canada.
Garrett, I'll let you go next.
Great, yes. So I lead the life cycle of products and go-to-market at AudienceX. And for those that might not be familiar with AudienceX, we started out 10 years ago as a full-service brand strategy and doing creative work for agencies and brands. Then clients started asking us to run their media. We, sort of read the tea leaves on programmatic and bought a DSP and then built an enterprise-grade trading desk to really unlock the access for all, the major buying platforms. And then we've grown and evolved into a team of experts across programmatic search and social. 10,000 campaigns later, we enable challenger brands to compete with their category leader by leveraging that data-driven creative plus marketing science to, deliver better outcomes. And so thanks to PDMI and Kingstar and the rest of my colleagues here today for having me. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Garrett. Ben, last but least.
How you doing? Yeah, I'm Executive Vice President and part owner of a company called Bulletin out of Toronto. Reason I'm here is we have the exclusive rights to DAZN in Canada. DAZN works with the NFL and the Champions League and allows people to obviously watch the app and live sports, and we help them, grow revenue streams through advertising and running DAI spots within the NFL games and Champions League. So we're excited. Champions League finals on June 10th. We're very excited about that. And then obviously starting in September, we're back live with the NFL, and we'll have all of the connected TV and digital rights to that. So
amazing. Well, appreciate you guys all taking the intro. So we'll get started with a few questions. And I think the first one, let's go back in time. Tell me about when you did your first connected TV buy, maybe who was it for and what channels did you pick? Rachel, I'll start with you.
Yeah, mine's a very interesting journey. So I'd have to go way back across the Atlantic to the UK. And I was in an agency role, so in the broadcast team. And it was a really interesting buy. I really, you took me down memory lane when you asked me that question, because I remember that one of the main things was who does that buy, which team makes that buy. So we were in the broadcast team, there was a digital team. Is connected TV? Is it digital? Who should make that buy? And I think that was one of the most memorable parts of placing that buy. I remember it was for an insurance client. And I think that was kind of the start of the journey that really changed my career. You know, I was a linear TV buyer. It was, you know, dots and spots. It made sense. You know, you could tell a client when it was going to air. And I think from that moment onwards till now, and joining Finecast and working with Finecast in the UK too, it's really been a journey from that moment. So yeah, it was an insurance brand. How did we decide who to work with was a really interesting one. So at that time, we worked directly with the broadcasters, which again was really interesting. It was new for everybody. So when we talked about CPMs and audience and what the balance between each vendor should be, I think that was a learning curve for everyone on all sides. So that was probably, I'd say, more than 10 years ago. So yeah, a memorable time. And I remember feeling that was part of something very new and exciting in the agency. So something that I think, like, I would say was one of, like, maybe the pivotal moments in my career of feeling like being part of something new and exciting. So yeah, that's what I can remember very vividly, and being very scared as well of not knowing, you know, if we were doing the right thing, but we were testing things, and I know the client was super excited. So yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, and how far we've come now. You know, last week ESPN mentioned that they're going to now close all of their kind of linear TV book and move it all over to streaming. They didn't announce a date, but it's interesting to see how fast things have expedited just from the buying and delivery side.
Yeah, I mean, from when I placed that buy, so that was probably one of my first years at one of the Group M agencies, Wavemaker, to when I left 6 years later. Like, we had such a streamlined process by that point. Like, we had measurement, we had systems that, you know, were integrated third party. So it's incredible how quickly the connected TV space has grown, you know, not just obviously in the UK, but the US and Canada too. I think that's what makes it so exciting to be part of this journey on how connected TV develops and how we talk about it, measure it, and how we get clients to be, you know, as excited as I was that first day when my director said, hey, you know, go plan a connected TV campaign. And we all kind of looked at each other and gulped. So yeah, really exciting, still exciting.
Yeah. Ben, talk to us about your first CTV buy and kind of how it's changed from then to now.
Yeah, I guess I could start off with, you know, at my last company I was working at called Bell, which is one of the larger media companies in Canada. We just started selling connected TV about 3-4 years ago, and so I was able to sell it through around the holiday time to one of the larger alcohol and liquor companies in Canada to promote a lot of their, you know, festive drinks and stuff. It was exciting because you know, connected TV has kind of come a long way, and I feel that, you know, bringing it into a place where we can, you know, guarantee impressions and do it all programmatically now is really exciting. And I think it's the next step of sort of, you know, TV and linear moving over and becoming, you know, more of a preferred platform for a lot of our advertisers. And yeah, I just thought the idea of, you know, not having to sign an IO manually and you know, send it back and forth was pretty cool, especially for connected TV. And the connected TV actually inventory was in some of the top shows in Canada. So it was in like Grey's Anatomy and Big Bang Theory and some of those really big shows that would air on Bell Media. So it was pretty exciting. But yeah, sorry, I don't have a purchase. I have more of a sale.
You know, I like it. It's funny that you say, like, it was just 3 to 4 years ago that Bell really got into the connected TV game, and it's really for our US audience who's listening in. That's kind of the huge difference between the US and Canada. We're definitely a little bit slower in adopting this connected TV in the US. It's been, you know, a lot more accessible for Americans than what we are seeing here in Canada. So only 3 to 4 years, one of the biggest broadcasters in Canada just really started to get into the connected TV game. So that shows where we're at in Canada versus the US. And now, Garrett, I just want to flip it to you. You know, talk to me about your first CTV buy and how it's changed since then.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was the first CTV campaign, but I remember very distinctly back in 2017, we had, really kind of controlled broadcast media and cable companies and major content providers in terms of measurement and attribution for not only mobile apps, but cross-device screen channel, omni-channel measurement solutions for, publishers and content providers when I was at Coachella. And we had really done an effective job of providing great utility for these media companies. And one of the benefits of that, or the outcome, was that Amazon and Fire TV had really kind of sat up straight and recognized our leadership with respect to attribution. And we had tracked the first deterministically measured CTV Fire TV campaigns. And it was 2017, a lot younger, advertising kind of like dog years, so certainly was a lot younger back then, but I remember it very vividly as a kind of a landmark moment in the transformation of media and CTV and measurement.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Rachel, I'm gonna flip it back to you now. We're talking a little bit about this Canada versus US. What would you say is kind of the biggest difference between Canada and the US from a CTV buying perspective?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who came to Canada from the UK, I think it was a big learning curve of how different Canada is. You can't associate the US and Canada as a North America buy. And before I kind of go into the differences in media, I mean, I think the things you need to think about for, Canada in particular is we are, a very unique landscape here. Just from the size of the country, we have the second largest country in the world, but the fourth lowest population. So that's something from someone who moved from a little old island in the UK with a population of 60 million people. That's a real big difference. And it comes with its challenges from, I've never, and I think that, a lot of countries don't have this problem, in Canada. It's not a problem, I guess, but, something that's a bit of a difference is we have two languages, we have English and French, and with the different provinces like Quebec, they have a very different way of consuming media. And I think that, one of the things when you think about, all media, not just connected TV, is to really understand how Canada is so different from, an immigration point of view, that we have, a more aging population, that we have this huge landmass and language. So it's a very complex market to really get your head around of how do you reach audiences, take away which media channel, but just from that outset. So to kind of I answered that like a bit of a politician, but I think the thing that I would say about the differences between the US and Canada from a connected TV point of view is that we do share some of the same similarities. We know that connected TV and streaming, whether that be through SVOD or AVOD services, are on the rise. And we know that more and more our audiences are shifting away from linear and towards that kind of hybrid viewing. And just like the US, we share the same sort of consumption in hours and tech. But I think to Ben's point on, what are the differences? I think that we are a slower market, that we do have new players. So just before Christmas, Pluto launched here, which gave us a huge boost in that VAS. So the free ad-supported TV. So giving Canadians more choice and a real easy way to be able to watch connected TV content. And I think that's the difference I would say is we share the same challenges in terms of how do we reach audiences as the US. We have all of those vendors, so the broadcasters, as Ben said, Bell, speaking to Bell is one of them. There's lots of choice here, and I think from an advertiser point of view, I would say it's really understanding that Canada is a unique market and really understand what each vendor brings to your connected TV plan. So we have great choice like the US of different people to work with, but what are they bringing and how are they reaching that audience through what content?
Yeah, no, that's really well said, Rachel. I love what you said about the language and, the US kind of advertisers often forget 20% of Canada is that French-speaking audience. So it's super important to not only adapt your creative, but then make sure that you're targeting it separately for each geo. And I think too, for those US advertisers and US companies, we don't have Hulu here. So that's a huge difference between Canada and the US, where you're aggregating a bunch of content from different publishers and networks on one platform. In Canada, we don't have access. They're all kind of siloed, so there's a lot of fragmentation. So like you said, it's a more difficult market just because it's a little more complex from a buying and audience standpoint. Cool. So Ben, I'm going to flip it to you now. Let's talk publishers, since you're a publisher, you're repping DAZN. So from a publisher perspective, what do you think is the biggest hurdle that you experience when you're onboarding or launching a new campaign with a new client?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, and what I've noticed certainly over the last 5 or 6 years selling or connected TV for that matter, is understanding seasonality and understanding peaks of your inventory and for example, at a big TV company like Bell Media, or in this case in the US like a Fox or an NBC, there's going to be a lot more inventory around the fall time when all the new shows come out, and then there's going to be a spike again of a lot of inventory in the winter when a lot of the shows kind of come back on after their hiatus. Same thing with DAZN with live sports. We only really do a lot of impressions on Sunday and sometimes a little bit on Monday and Thursdays, because those are the games, the days of the week when NFL plays their games, right? So what I've found with clients is that they're so used to, with a lot of digital campaigns, whether it be display or pre-roll, is pacing almost every day at the exact same time. And so the idea of that, yes, we're gonna deliver on that campaign, it's just gonna be kind of hills and valleys, because someday you're gonna get 850,000 impressions because we're live with all of our NFL games, and then on Tuesday you may get 5 impressions. And so educating our clients and making them understand that it's a whole different kind of world from sort of buying a YouTube or other types of online platforms, because it's just it comes down to a lot of seasonality. At Bell, my previous company, there just wasn't a lot of inventory during the summer because shows are off, and there's not a lot of people, especially in Canada, staying indoors and watching lots of sports or TV, because people are out enjoying their summers and there's just not a lot to watch on TV. So educating people that hey, we're going to deliver, we're going to perform, but it's just going to kind of come. Those impressions are going to come in as they go, and there's not much you can really do about it.
I love that, and that's good to say about the summers. We don't live in igloos for you Americans, but it is freezing cold from November to March. So in the summer months, we do like to get out. So like Ben said, a lot less impressions in those summer months, especially for the live programming. Garrett, let's talk a little bit, because you're the analytics DSP expert. Any differences in tracking between Canada and the US that we should be aware of?
There are some partners that have done a really good job and are more focused on the Canadian market. I'm not just talking about, publishers and content providers, but, some partners that have really focused on the Canadian market from a user standpoint, data standpoint, stuff like that, as well as cross-device measurement. But the concept and the technical requirements are really the same. You're just working with a smaller, supply footprint. There's fewer eyeballs and therefore less data to leverage. But the first step is to have a good roster of partners that really specialize in those primary components, which are a good household ID graph, because IP resolution is really critical. We're in a state of flux with the internet, where the internet is really kind of hinged on a cookie, going from one ID to 50 IDs. And while cookies are not used for targeting on CTV, they are used in that munging of data sets on the back end. So it's really important to have a good IP resolution partner, as well as a good, cookie and data, just the data partner, as well as somebody with a partner with a great, strong graph that covers, not only that geo, but also users, devices, screens, channels, so that you can personalize ads across those environments. And really getting closer to the consumers. So leveraging partners that have direct relationships with the end consumers, getting closer to the supply source, your buying platform of choice, and leveraging the pixels in the footer to be able to tie that exposure to the conversions. There's lots of talk about whether QR codes will actually be used in 3 to 5 years on CTV, but I'm a firm believer that they'll probably lose some of their luster, as they have in the past. But there's a lot of interactive experience in CTV where you're able to measure the engagement and tie that to the exposure, and all that interaction can be measured in more places than just one conversion. So while incrementality is a really thirsty beast, I mean, there aren't a lot of advertisers that are, able to invest in, a proper incrementality test to measure the impact from one channel to the next. It's really important for sequential advertising and then personalization. Measuring the influence that one channel has on the others and looking at those assists is really important in terms of like the holistic media, execution. So I think those are some of the key areas of focus, not really differentiators or different from US to Canada, but some of the same themes that are important. And then, like I said, there are some really strong local partners like Numeris with their VAM and TAM product. The video audience measurement product is really picking up a lot of momentum for cross-device data and measurement. So those are some of the partners that are some of the considerations to think about.
Yeah, I love that. And, the holistic view, I think in media, everybody is so concerned about the last touch and what drove that last touch conversion. But, what drove that first touch? What made them think about the brand? What was the first point of contact with the consumer? And like you said, Connected TV can get complicated with all the things that you really need to add to do proper measurement. But you did touch, Garrett, on the one thing, that simple pixel that almost all the DSPs now have. You put in your footer, and it helps you get that initial tracking set up. And honestly, really any advertiser can place that on your site. It's no different than the Meta or Google Pixel, and huge suggestion for anybody just to get that set up as a starting point for tracking.
Right. Yeah, and I guess just to build on that a little bit, like the ad formats and the creative are also really important. There's a bunch of new, you're talking about the big screen. So there's much more real estate to do creative, innovative things. For example, pause ads or binge ads or shoppable or conversational interactive engagement ads that that kind of experience is just much harder to do on a smaller screen. And so taking advantage of that real estate, knowing that over 30% of customers buy a product after seeing it on a TV. They're 80% of us are connected to the internet on another device while we're watching CTV. So there's a lot of opportunities for that sequential and personalization across that user journey.
Yeah, I just want to play up on that creative piece. It's, for us that are familiar with the traditional linear broadcast format and the approval process required for some creative, sometimes you're going back and forth with the governing bodies 2-3 days, making a lot of changes. Just give me 1 second. I'm actually having a fire alarm test, and it's almost over. They said it's completed, so. But Connected TV is still kind of in its infancy and wild west, so you can get away with some more creative and test a lot more. So please definitely take advantage of that. Okay, I promise fire alarm testing is done now. Okay, so let me flip it back now to everybody, and I think this is like a hot topic, something everybody is talking about. Let's talk CPM prices on Connected TV. We're still doing linear buys, and a lot of people on here, you're seeing CPMs and sometimes the $1, $2, $3 range. How do you then go to those advertisers or your partners and say, hey, listen, I got a great Connected TV opportunity, and they say, hey, what's the CPM? And you tell them it's $30 or $40. How do you justify that, Rachel? Where would you start?
Oh, thank you for that, Geoff. Give me the hot topic question first. I like that. Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, it's a really hot topic, and I know we chatted about this earlier. I think that it comes up as one of the barriers, and I think how we throw it back is that as someone who loves TV and is from a broadcast background, I think that there's a place for every media on the plan, and we would never want to take away from what traditional linear brings, mass reach. But I also do think that there are some drawbacks to it. So it's cheap because it's broad. It's a spray and pray. You're buying an age and a demo, and with that, how much of your audience are you actually reaching? And to give an example of that, if you're trying to sell, I don't know, a $100,000 car, how much are you wasting of that $1 CPM on people who are just not in market? And I think what Connected TV allows you to do is be really focused on who your audience is by using data, either bring your own data, third-party data, to be able to identify, you know, who is that on target audience and how do we reach those? And with that comes a cost. But what I would turn the conversation around, and that's kind of what we do at Finecast, is the value that connected TV can bring is to eliminate wastage. So when you equate that $1 CPM to, you know, let's just say you're running a full national Canada buy and you only actually, you know, in linear, you have to buy that way with some of the vendors here in Canada. How much wastage is there to somebody who you're trying to reach in Ontario or even downtown Toronto that's in market for this $100,000 car? And when you back that CPM out, actually we've become in line, if not better, to the linear CPM. So I think it is a really hot topic. I think that for some brands, we've been able to really sell that story through, and I think that there's success. But I do think that, you know, as someone who was from that broadcast team, I think that it was one of the things that, you know, I dealt with on the agency side directly with clients, and now being on the other side, I think that that's kind of how we're trying to, you know, educate our agencies and to think of us as, you know, somewhere between digital media and TV, linear TV. You know, the two of them had a baby and gave you the ability to target more against age and demo and be more specific. So not exactly one-to-one, but that sort of like sweet spot in the middle. So I'll pass it to Ben, because I can see him nodding and maybe desperate to add or tell me that I'm wrong. But yeah, that's the way that we're talking about it here.
Yeah, Ben, we got to hear from you, the publisher who's selling. Sorry.
Yeah. No, those are really good points, and I think, you know, I have the luxury of selling live sports. So, you know, my argument or what I sort of present to my clients and partners is I say, listen, you know, these are engaged users. These are people who have, you know, who are taking time to sit down and put the game on, and, you know, they're a fan. And these are ads that kind of, you know, run during, you know, their favorite sports game. And so, you know, I would argue that these people are a little bit more engaged than somebody that maybe has it on, you know, TV on the background passively. So I definitely have that luxury to sort of say that, you know, it's important to really capture that user who's, you know, appointment viewing and sitting down and taking the time to watch their beloved football team or soccer team that week. So that's sort of how I kind of get away with it. But also too, I find, you know, from an addressable standpoint as well, you know, you can get a lot more granular when it comes down to, you know, say postal code targeting and things of that nature. In Toronto, as an example, I know we keep using Toronto as examples, you know, there's homes and, you know, areas with homes that have, you know, that are worth $25 million. And then there's areas where homes are worth, you know, $400,000, right? And so are you selling that $100,000 car to, you know, the less, you know, household income areas, or are you targeting it to the, you know, the areas where they have $25 million homes, right? So the amount of targeting is certainly, I justify, you know, I would argue justifies a CPM increase as well. And so between the, you know, live sports, the appointment viewing, and, you know, an engaged user, I think it's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, I like that, Ben. I think we have this mantra is that anything can work at the right price, and it's really all about the CPA and that down funnel conversion. If you're running your Google search, go look at the CPM price for some of those intent-based searches. You're paying $200, $300 CPMs for someone that's actively looking for your product or your brand or something within it. And it's the same kind of thing like Rachel and Ben mentioned with the targeting layer. You can really hit that niche demo who maybe is not intent-based, but they're just like one step above where they're, call it like a little bit of a warm audience, and we'll have a better chance respond with that engaged audience. Garrett, I'll flip it to you for a final thought on those CPMs.
Yeah, I mean, I think you all did a great job of covering it. You can't plan one without the other. We still recommend 40%. There's, you know, a myth that I'd like to debunk about linear. Linear technically includes fast channels, free ad-supported streaming television, so technically simulated live and live streaming content. So, you know, I think it's more accurate perhaps to say traditional TV, but you know, 40% of the audience is cord shaver, never cutter, whatever you want to call it. And so, you know, you can't ignore this new channel, this new opportunity to reach people on the big screen. And really it is higher quality data and targeting. You know, with traditional TV, you know where your ads ran, but you know very little about the user, whereas it's flip-flopped with CTV. You know everything about the user, And there have been some great strides in helping buyers, marketers really understand more about the content so that you can align creative next to the topic of content, which in every other channel and every other media across the history of digital advertising drives relevance, recall, response, lift, purchase intent. I mean, those are the ways that you're really going to get that engagement and conversion, and think of CTV as a performance channel. It's not just, top of funnel impressions. It's really about driving action and engagement with whatever shoppable or interactive TV ads. So we've seen that with a lot of our clients, and I think it's only going to continue going forward.
Yeah, and I like that too. You mentioned kind of the adjustable and the personalization aspect, but I think too, from the advertiser and media or buying side, it's really that ability of control. With linear TV or traditional buy, typically you're locking in sometimes 2 to 4 week campaign, and it could be going south, doing terribly within the second or third day. You're like, I want out of this, and you have no choice. With connected TV, it really gives you that opportunity to pause if things aren't going well, maybe optimize the frequency, change the day parting, add in an audience, take one out. So there's a lot more flexibility within that environment than your traditional buy.
Yeah.
So Ben, let's talk to, is there a particular vertical of advertisers that you're seeing more growth in? Obviously, you're involved in live sports, but is there like a specific vertical that you think fit for CTV is doing really well and seeing a lot of performance from it?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's easy for me. There's 2 categories that have really kind of taken off in the last, I'd say, 2 years. Definitely at DAZN, there's food delivery services. So, the Uber Eats, the Skip the Dishes, the DoorDashes of the world. You're getting people that are relaxed, got their feet up watching TV, and that's a perfect opportunity to say, hey, stay off your feet and we'll bring the food to you, right? So there's a very easy fit there. And then the second one is online banking. So we're seeing a lot more of like Quest Trade, EQ Bank, Neobank, a lot of these sort of up and coming banks that don't have your typical brick and mortar banks where you can kind of go in. It's all really done mostly online, and I think it's obviously there's a lot of growth there, and so obviously they see value in connected TV, but also too there's kind of a little bit of a early tech adopter thing going on there as well. People that are have newer TVs that are paying $26 a month for premium NFL on their television are a little bit more likely to bank online and not have to use a brick and mortar actual institution to go into. And so those 2 categories have really done well for us. So I'm thankful to those 2 verticals. They're keeping the lights on at our company, or helping to.
Yeah, well, food delivery and the NFL, I think, go hand in hand. I think we've all been there where you're on Uber Eats now for the second time of the day. You're like, what's happening here? But definitely a good fit. And I guess, Garrett, so Ben was talking a lot about the kind of food delivery and the online banks of the world. On your DSP and on your side, are you seeing product specific, or guys that are just product focused, they really need that sale and to generate ROAS on each sale? Are you seeing them make CTV work?
Yeah, as I mentioned, it's I guess there is a segment of marketers that are leveraging CTV as a performance channel, mostly, a lot of the D2C brands and brands that have product sets that are more conducive to that. But like you said, who would have thought that a retail bank, neobanks are not the traditional, kind of historic teller bank relationship manager style banking experiences, but there's a lot of ways that you can kind of transform your marketing mix by leveraging CTV and leveraging the big screen, a lot more real estate, as I mentioned, for creative and innovative ad formats. So we're seeing a lot of that across and outside of the verticals that you would traditionally think would only do well on CTV. It's broadening the spectrum of possibilities.
Love that. And Rachel, let's talk a little bit about demographics and audiences. I mean, what do you think is like the best demo or audience that you're seeing scale quickly, or maybe standing above the rest?
So I'd say we should think about it for all audiences. I think, as we'd probably expect, that it is the younger demos, so those cord cutters, so those that have, or nevers, I should say, the nevers who have, you know, left home, gone to university, someone like me who's moved to another country, never had that cable subscription. So I think I use myself as a really good example that if an advertiser in Canada has been running on linear and trying to be reaching a millennial who lives downtown, and we keep saying Toronto, then you haven't reached me. And I think that that's where we've been in rooms with advertisers, and it's kind of a wake-up call of, you know, we think that it's these young 21 Gen Zs, but actually it's all of the Canadian population. And I think, you know, at Finecast, one of the things that we've done is really have a look into what we're kind of talking about, the missed opportunity. So if you don't run on connected TV, who would you have not reached? And what we see is that it's a spread across all of the demo of Canada. And I think that's really down to, like we touched on earlier, that the hybrid viewing. So people do still watch, you know, we call it traditional live linear TV, but they are using connected TV as that top up, especially, you know, COVID and everything that happened. You know, we all want to forget it, but, you know, we were at home for 2 years. I think that kind of really accelerated the change in how we view. So, you know, to kind of answer your question like a politician, I guess, I think, you know, we should think about it for, you know, all advertisers across all audiences in some percentage of our buy, of our media buy. And I think, you know, for younger demos, it's much more prevalent. But, you know, I always like to quote my dad, who is at home in England right now and has no idea how famous he is in the Canadian media world. But I use him as the example because people or audiences, you know, when we're in media, we kind of forget that we are a special breed. And that, you know, I talk to my dad about how did you, you know, what did you watch last night? And he'll say, Deadliest Catch. And I say, how did you watch it? And he says, on my TV. And he has no idea if he's watching on AVOD, SVOD, live linear, you know, he doesn't get that. And I think that is kind of, you know, amazing that is not just only the content that's exploded for us to be able to watch, but the ways in which we can watch. And it's such a seamless, non-convoluted way to watch this content that audiences outside of, you know, our world don't realize all of the work that we do behind the scenes to make that seamless. So yeah, he's a famous Englishman that doesn't know that he is famous for watching TV.
I like that. And you touched on a good point, like just the consumption habits of Canadians and obviously Americans as well. You know, everybody's on the couch. They're watching on the big screen. They got their mobile phone. Who knows? They're on Instagram. They're on Amazon at the same time. And it's like, how do you reach that user across multiple devices at the same time with the same message and push them to buy? So it's really that holistic effort and trying to, you know, it's a madness that everybody's trying to figure out, I think, in the advertising world. So speaking of this, like fragmentation, we just talked about it. I mean, you know, my wife and I were watching one show on Apple TV, then we flipped to Amazon to watch our next program, then we're jumping on DAZN, you know, to watch the Premier League finals. So I think my question, and Ben, I'll start with you, since you come from the publisher world. Do you think we'll ever have like a Hulu type offering here where Canadians can access all these publishers on one platform, one app?
Yeah, I do think it probably will happen at some point. I think there's just so much fragmentation now. And as you know, typically a lot of companies would sort of represent, you know, a bunch of shows from the US under, you know, one channel, and then, you know, a number of others. There's just so much content out there, and I think people are going to get to a point where they're getting a little tired of downloading and having 15, 16 different apps. And I think the publishers will see that and start maybe looking at sort of consolidating into one platform. You know, Bell, as an example, has a lot of their own shows, but then they also represent HBO, which they call Crave in Canada, right? And so that alone is a lot of content. And what happens if HBO decides to kind of take it out and just sell it as HBO on its own? Even more market and publisher fragmentation. And I think that will continue to happen. And I think we're already experiencing some exhaustion. We found too with DAZN, we have a number of professional soccer leagues, but then there was another app that came into market a couple of years ago and had a couple other soccer leagues as well that we no longer have. And so, yeah, I definitely got some frustration from some friends and even clients about, oh, now I have to buy 2 apps now to watch all of my soccer, and people getting a little frustrated with that. So yeah, I definitely think it will, you know, not be as fragmented for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, people are these cord cutters because they want to save money and their cable package is $100. Well, once you start adding in like 6 or 7 platforms, you're probably going above that now. So it's like you said, people are gonna get frustrated, exhausted with it. And I don't think there's a perfect answer now. And I think that, the difference between the US and Canada is the CRTC and the Canadian regulators, the broadcasters still control a big chunk of the media, and it's really kind of monopolistic with 3 or 4 major players. So one, they don't really want to play in the same sandbox together and share their content. So I think it'll be interesting to see in the next 5 to 10 years how it progresses. So I think, Garrett, I just want to talk, you mentioned a lot about the differences between CTV setup in Canada and the US, and you mentioned some really good things for tracking. Outside of that, like pixel that we were going to place in the footer, is there one thing that you want to tell the audience here that they should have set up ready to go before they launch? And that can be creative placements, whatever you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe not one thing, but every successful campaign that I've seen or been a part of has 3 components. You've got the audience, you've got the content, and you've got the context or the experience. And right now, or over the last couple of years, given all the headwinds around privacy and identity and mounting legislation and all that sort of thing, everybody has been focused on getting their audience piece correct, and therefore missing the context opportunity, the very real opportunity with respect to context. And think about it, it's much different. We've talked about it on this session today, the fragmentation, how the plumbing and the piping and the way audiences are bought and sold is much different with CTV. And the internet was really architected and built on web pages. So the digital advertising and the whole ecosystem and all the plumbing and piping and infrastructure wasn't really built for this new video. And so, every programmatic, just as an example, every programmatic bid request has a page URL in the bid stream. So any vendor can come by, they can crawl the page, they can understand what the content's about, they can assign their context and brand safety and all the brand suitability, dirty dozen to that page. But the video URL has never passed in the bid stream. It never will be. It's locked under DRM and other restrictions. And so technically, like 50% of the videos on a page don't match the actual, content within that video. And so, the move to CTV, there is no page. So all you have is really the app name, the channel name, and you get genre, maybe 15, 20% of bid requests. So technically, nobody really knows what's inside the content unless you work with a partner that has the machine learning, the AI, the NLP, the capability of getting access to that video content, the video URL itself, and being able to understand, what's the sight, sound, and motion within that, the sentiment, the content from the first, section ad break to, the last ad break, and where, marketers want to insert their ads. So I think it's really about leveraging content signals, because that seems to be one of the kind of things that people are just overlooking right now, with laser focus around audience and not really being able to round out that experience with content signals, and being, like I said earlier, being able to align your creative next to the topic of content is kind of rule number 1 of advertising effectiveness. So I think that's the recommendation that I would have in terms of not only driving performance in CTV, but obviously looking at that holistically across your media plan with an omni-channel approach to digital and campaign execution.
I love that. Like the content alignment there, don't use the same ad that you're running on Meta or that you're running on TikTok or that, running on TV for that matter, and think that it's going to fit into this connected TV environment. Ben just mentioned, you're talking to an advanced football or sports aficionado expert addict to sports who need this extra money for this platform. You're going to talk to them a little bit differently than you're going to talk to that adults 18 plus on linear TV.
That's right, and understanding content consumption and how that differs, understanding primary devices for ad serving in the household. I mean, all of those things are really important for sequential advertising experiences, and then driving, personalization to be able to deliver outsized results for clients. So those are some of the things that I think are really important.
Yeah, and I like that too. And like even to that content, don't just come with a one ad. You know, you're in this digital environment where you can track performance. So test 2, 3, or 4 different versions of that ad, see what works with the audience, then it will help you iterate from there. So I think, you know, we had some really good discussions here. Last question that I think we touched on it a little bit, but you know, I'm a performance-focused advertiser. I need to drive sales. That's how my business thrives and how I grow it. Can I rely on CTV alone to be a performance driver, just have that in the stack? Or do you think I need to have that holistic view and add in display and mobile video? Rachel, I'll throw it to you first.
You're giving me all the difficult ones first, Geoff, which I love. I think, again, to answer like a politician, I think it really depends. I think it depends on the advertiser and the audience. I think for some audiences, yes, and for some audiences, maybe there is a better mix or a mix within connected TV. But I would say that, you know, across all audiences, like I said, I think it's something that should be considered for everyone. And like I think Garrett and Ben have both touched on it, that, you know, connected TV shouldn't be thought as it's just top of funnel awareness. It does drive a response. And I think the piece that we need to work on in Canada, and some of the work that we're doing here at Finecast, is really testing that in different ways. So how do we measure that? Is it working with a partner to understand footfall into stores? Is it, you know, the buzz of QR codes right now after COVID? Is it being able to say, you know, we drove trial of a product? And I think that we see connected TV does do that. But I think that, like when we've talked about, is it first or last attribution? I think that's the piece that we need to understand. And I think like Garrett's touched on that with pixels and other media metrics. So to answer like a politician, I think it depends, but 100% it has a place to drive a sale.
Awesome. Ben, I'll flip it to you. You're the publisher, so we'll get a good sales pitch, I think.
Yeah, only connected TV should be on your media. No, no,
I mean, I agree with Ben. I take it back. I agree with Ben.
Yeah, I mean, hey, at Bulletin, we represent a number of products, and so you know, we obviously we see value in a number of other, whether we pre-roll, digital out of home. I think you just have to be smart with your media mix, and I think everything you know, deserves a piece of your media budget based on, you know, who you're trying to reach. One of my biggest frustrations working in connected TV for the past 5-6 years is, you know, I actually had a broadcast background. I started off as an agency broadcast buyer, and I always used to hate people say, well, broadcast is dead and things like that. It's certainly not. You know, there's tons of people still watching broadcast, and I think we need to make sure that we're hitting the right people in the right mediums. And you know, just print, I'm sure, is still you know, driving conversions and things like that. And there's still probably some healthy budgets in that. Everything deserves on the plan, and I don't think connected TV should be overlooked.
Can I jump in on that too? Yeah. I do also think that, like Ben brings up a really interesting point. I think that anything new gets challenged the most. So connected TV is under the microscope to be, what did you drive and what did you deliver? And sometimes, like to Ben's point of, well, press is still on the plan and out of home is on the plan. And I think that we have, you know, we're tasked with proving our value more than ever, which is great. And I think that all of us on this call are doing that and trying to make connected TV measurement and performance even better. But I think that's a really interesting point that Ben brings up about other media. I think that anything new is questioned the most. And I think that, you know, if we think back to when digital media came out X years ago, I think people had a lot of fingers to point at that, and look how that's come. So I think that in the next 5 years, it will be something else under the microscope. So just Ben, when you talked about press, really made me think about that and have a little chuckle inside.
Yeah, I like that, under the microscope. We have advertisers that are spending 6 figures on the linear TV side, and they're just cool with a report that they don't really respond to, and then they're spending, you know, $2,000-$3,000 on a test for connected TV, and they want 20-page report. They're having emails, questions. So under the microscope, you know, we're here as agency and partners and supporters to help advertisers understand it, how it can be part of the media mix, and how it can drive those down funnel conversions. And Garrett, I'll give you the last thought, since you're really seeing this on the DSP and the analytics side. How is it doing at the bottom of the funnel?
Yeah, I mean, I think our approach has really been focusing on omni-channel advertising execution. So you think about, the bingo buzzwords of the purchase funnel and purchase pretzel is how it evolved. I mean, the buyer journey is no longer a linear path to conversion. There's all sorts of different touch points when used in conjunction with each other, and managing frequency and reach across different screens, channels, and devices. That halo effect is meaningful, and one channel's impact on another, that assist is really leading to great results and performance for a lot of our clients. There are advertisers that are more suited for maybe a one channel approach. Maybe one or two channel approach is what we more commonly see. But our main recommendations to clients is really to leverage all screens, channels, devices, and platforms to find out what's working and optimize towards outcomes. And that's been kind of over the last 10 years of our business, 10,000 campaigns, delivering insane ROAS when ROAS is being measured. And it's really because of this strategy and our expert, buying teams and analytics and insights that we're delivering to clients.
Love it. All right, well, we're coming towards the end of the hour here, so we want to leave some time for questions. Ben, Garrett, and Rachel, you guys are awesome. Thanks for making this easy for me. Tom from PDMI, I'm going to flip it back to you now, and just let us know if there's any questions from the audience.
Yeah, great job, everybody. That drew some good questions, and some things that were grazed upon, perhaps, but looks like people want to dig a little bit more in, or get a reassertment of the takes that were given here. So, first question that popped through was about the future of linear TV, and do you feel that linear TV has a future? If so, what does that look like based on the pace and growth of CTV development?
Yeah, so I'll take it first, and I think linear TV definitely still has a place. I think, like we all said and we agreed, it's really that omni-channel approach, and then what makes sense for your audience and your product. TV in Canada is still the best way to reach that mass audience. It's still hitting 26 million Canadians out of the 35 that we have every week. It's hitting 10 million households that have a paid subscription. So linear TV is not going anywhere. It's just that now CTV is taking a little bit more of that viewership pie. So like everyone here said, it needs to be a part of the media mix. Another thing to think too is immigration in Canada is on the up. We're expecting 500,000 new Canadians every year for the next 5 years. So linear TV is still going to take some of those new Canadians, and so will connected. So really, how do you adapt and include everything? And Rachel, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I think as well, with linear, I think that there's moments where linear makes sense. Connected TV is there too. But I think for like live sports, as Ben says, I think live moments like the Oscars, and I think that there's so much great content that is being produced. I think that, across the world, and specifically in Canada, I think Canadian produced content through the likes of CBC, Chorus, all of our vendors. I think that they've really stepped their game up to produce content that makes people want to pay that cable subscription as well. And that's not to say that you can't access that content through connected TV too. But yeah, I don't think that linear is going anywhere. I think that it's just going to be the balance between all of those channels, and how do you reach that audience in the right place at the right time.
Great, makes sense. Touching back on talk around CPMs, and there's a lot of talk about that in the US market as well, CPMs on CTV. When do you think CPMs might reach levels performance marketers are more accustomed to, or do D2C marketers need to shift their KPIs now to account for this difference?
Garrett, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it enables or unlocks the ability to leverage data in a much more meaningful way. And like has been said on this session today, there are channels that have much higher CPAs that marketers have figured out how to monetize. So it is something that's on the minds of marketers when they are shifting from traditional and linear to CTV as part of their mix. But I still think, sitting here in the fast capital of Los Angeles, or the world in Los Angeles, the world is really leaning into this new opportunity. So I think that marketers are able to justify it. It's just a matter of leveraging the right data to arrive and reach the right users, and having those ad formats that can drive not only just a single point of conversion, but that engagement along that user journey, and creating better experiences to collect and capture more data, more intel, more insights, and opportunities to reach users on other channels as they're oftentimes multitasking with other devices. So it's about the holistic ROAS across all screens, not just looking at CTV performance in a silo. That would be my recommendation.
Great. Here's a big idea question. What's the next leap for CTV advertising in Canada?
I think honestly what we were just touching, like maybe like a Hulu style platform, something to amalgamate and bring it all together. That's where I think a big leap could be. Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, I would agree. I think some more kind of consolidation. Not as many apps. Somebody coming along and having a really strong product with a UI that is able to encourage a lot of the broadcasters and content companies in Canada to come on board. I think that's definitely something. And I think, yeah, I just think more and more, I think live TV as well, more live inventory being added onto connected TV. We're still, the live DAI in sports is still relatively new, and I think there'll be, more of an emphasis on that over the coming years for sure.
Great. We'll try to wedge one more in here. Are there any differences in how CTV advertising is working between French-speaking Canadian audiences and English-speaking audiences?
Yeah. So Rachel, you're in touch with a lot of that. Do you want to respond?
Yeah. I would say that it's just the way that we buy. The markets are very. I have like 2 minutes, so it's very different in the markets how we how we talk to them. So you have to have, for anyone who's in the States and doesn't know, that if you're advertising in Quebec, the French-speaking province, you have to have French-speaking creative. There's a law around that. So I think that is something to really consider, that if you are wanting to reach those French speakers, then you have to have a French piece of creative. So that's one of the biggest differences. I think that advertisers here in Canada, how they're using, that English and French and how we talk about them, we talk about them as one audience. It just might be that the vendors that we use are very different to reach that group of people in Quebec. But that's something that we're able to do. There is, like Ben said, there's a launch of specific content that reaches that audience. And yeah, I think that's the biggest piece to kind of, if I could give you one takeaway, is to really think about Canada is how you speak to that. The two sides, the English and the French, is really, really important, and to get that right, and to spend some time speaking to people in Canada who know this market really, really well.
Yeah, that content alignment that Garrett touched on is particularly important for the French market.
Exactly.
Great. Well, hey, I'm going to rejoin you visually. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go in order of which I see on my screen. Rachel, Geoff, Garrett, Ben, thank you so much for all of your expertise and your willingness to share it today with our audience. Tremendous stuff. We'd also like to thank the Workshop Council for bringing us to today's event. If you are a PDMI member and would like to get involved, you can reach out to me directly to share your interest in the Workshop Council or any of our other 5 councils today. Your next opportunity to attend a PDMI event live online is our next edition of Take 20, our bi-monthly webinar series created by the Brand Response Council. On Wednesday, June 14th, members of our PDMI councils will share their top book tips as part of the PDMI's summer reading list. To register for the webinar, please visit thepdmi.com/take-20. Online registration is also open now for PDMI West, October 9th through 11th in San Diego, with 10 planned educational sessions, 4 special networking events, and more planned. PDMI West promises to be the performance marketers' must-attend event of the fall. Badge holders will also get first opportunity to book their hotel rooms in our discounted block at the event's new host, the luxurious Intercontinental San Diego. Visit thepdmi.com/PDMI-West for more info and to grab your badge today. Thank you again to our group for again sharing your expertise. We look forward to seeing you all soon. For those of you who want to see more of this or missed any of it, we'll be on YouTube by next week. So we'll see you there. Thanks again for joining us. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.